Good evening. We're going to call this regularly scheduled meeting for November, or specially scheduled meeting for November 5th, 2018 to order. And we're going to begin with an invocation. Mr. Burgett has agreed to deliver this. If you will, stand with me. Following the invocation, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Lord, we want to thank you for this opportunity to gather tonight. We thank you for every person that's here, every heart, mind, and soul. We pray that you'll guide us in the way that you want us to lead this community. We pray for the elections in our country tomorrow, that you'll guide the hearts of those individuals. We thank you for every opportunity we have to praise your name. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Burgett. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gwaltney.
Here.
Mr. Thames.
Here.
Mr. Higginbotham.
Here.
Mr. Wolverton.
Here.
Mr. McCluskey.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Mrs. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Wyatt.
Here.
Mrs. Andrus.
Here.
Mr. Wright.
Here.
And Mr. Limbaugh.
Here. So we have a quorum. Next item of business is the reading of the minutes for October 22nd, 2018. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for dispensing of the reading and approval of said minutes.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Gwaltney, second from Ms. Smith. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. And that is unanimous. Okay, board vacancies. Do we have an applicant for BZA or not?
We have an applicant.
Okay.
We're going to review the application.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any other vacancies or applications? All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on. With that, we've got quite a few additions to the agenda, which we seem to do these days, so let's go. 16, 11, 18, all of these are committee referral agenda items except for the last one. 16, 11, 18, request to authorize the mayor to sign a contract for AT&T First Net Portal requested by Brandon Broadhead with the fire department. This will go to finance. Next is 17, 11, 18, request to transfer up to $1 million from the general fund to the capital fund projects requested by the mayor and Mr. Burgett. This too will go to the finance committee. Then 18, 11, 18, request to transfer and deposit excess operating capital held in checking accounts into money market accounts with Bryant Bank, again requested by the mayor and Mr. Burgett. 19, 11, 18, request to transfer and deposit excess operating capital held in checking accounts into money market accounts with Iberia Bank, again requested by the mayor and Mr. Burgett. 20, 11, 18, request to create and fund the municipal court administrator position requested by the mayor and Mr. Burgett. 21, 11, 18, request for presentation to update council on the iTree landscape tools. This will go to special issues. This was requested by Amy Milan and our HEC and Homewood Environmental Commission. 22, 11, 18, request for consideration for adjustment to no parking on 26th Avenue South. This will be a referral to public safety and requested by Mr. Thames.
Mr. Limbaugh, just a correction, the iTree referral item, I think that's 21, 11, 18.
I'm sorry, did I not say that? I meant 21, 11, 18, and then 22, 11, 18 on the parking adjustment. Okay. Lastly, a request to move item 05, 11, 18 from committee referral to other new business. And that is it, to my knowledge. Any other request? If not, all in favor of the amended agenda. First, a motion and a second for approval of the amended agenda.
Can I ask one question, please, real quick?
Well, let's, who made the motion?
And I have a
Mr.
question
Higginbotham?
after hers.
Who seconds it? Second, Mr. Wolverton, now your question.
Do we need to add the agenda item for the referral to finance about the per diem policy?
Yes, ma'am. If you would like to add that this is the appropriate time when we can refer it to the Finance Committee.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is, what you're suggesting is 23-11-18.
Yes. I would add one additional committee referral item to finance, which would be 23-11-18, which would be a request to review and possibly make changes to the per diem meal account policy that we have for our employees.
Okay,
Does that work? And that'll get a
requested by you.
posted by myself, I suppose.
Okay. So,
And I have a question also. Sorry, on the committee referral agenda 05-11-18, my request when I sent that in via email was actually for it to go under new business. There's a little bit of urgency with that. If we,
That's what you just
oh, is
I did
that,
it, I said it.
Yeah, he said move it to other.
I promise I said it.
thank you, Mr. Limbaugh. I obviously was not paying attention. I'm just going to be honest with you. Clearly not paying attention.
Thank you for the honesty,
Looking
Ms.
at my
Andrews.
phone.
Is there anyone else who would like to throw themselves under the bus? Okay. There being none, would you like to amend your motion to add?
Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to accept that as a friendly amendment to my motion, if my seconder is willing to do so as well.
Okay, there we go. Motion by Mr. Higginbotham, second by Mr. Wolverton. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, good. Okay. Consent agenda. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval. Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Ms. Smith. Any comments or questions? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, and that passes. We'll move on to old business, 15-10-18, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of a variance to the sign ordinance at 3055 Independence Drive, requested by John Nelson and Greg Cobb with our BZ department, and we will open this public hearing. And Mr. Cobb, we're going to begin with you, with all due respect to the other individuals.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. This is a request for multiple attached signs on the building. There's a request for 2 attached signs on the building. They're not oversized, but there are 2 of them. And the other request is for a monument sign, which does fit our ordinance. You're allowed 1 freestanding sign and 1 attached. The building also has some other attached signs by a different business that's located within the same building.
Okay, so for clarity, the request is for 1 additional sign, right? Because the monument falls in the purview of our ordinance?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. All right, yes, sir, please.
John Nelson with Signs and Graphics. Dr. Malinpati's with me. Do you guys have copies of the pictures or drawings?
We've got the pictures up here on the
okay.
screen.
Yeah, they're on the screen.
From me, 21st century, but go ahead.
Well, as you can see, we're asking for signs, channel letter signs on both ends of the building, and then a monument sign on the front.
But again, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse, Greg, but the monument sign would be approved. Wouldn't
Yes, sir,
need
the
approval.
monument sign is not really in
Okay,
question.
okay.
We're just presenting it along with what is actually physically there. And I don't have a picture. There is another sign on the front of the building, I believe, from, what's it say? You got a
Dr. McCool.
McCool and Buta.
And then it also has the audiology, or whatever, audiology, that has a sign as well.
Good. All right,
Okay.
while these
Give it-
gentlemen are
Yeah,
here,
yeah, that's-
council, any questions?
All right, so I'm confused.
Yeah.
We adding 2 new signs to the building?
Correct.
Okay. And because of that, and counting the monument sign, is it a variance for two new signs, or is a variance for one sign?
The building actually already has McCool and Boot on the front. There's one sign that's attached.
Okay,
But it's a multi-tenant building, so his additional signs, either way you want to look at it, is two additional, or you want to add his one sign for his business plus one, however you prefer to look at it, but that's what
Okay.
he's asking for.
all right, my other question, and I see one of the signs there on the side there.
Yes, sir, there's one on each end like
Is
that.
it, and so there's another similar sign on the other side of the
Correct.
building?
Yes.
Just, okay, that's what I need to be clear on. Okay,
There's already been one.
thank you.
Is that for another business on the other side?
No, it's the exact same sign, just arranged a little bit different.
So you will not be mounting a sign on the face of the building?
Correct.
Okay, all right,
This is just to substitute that.
I understand.
Is one being viewed northbound and one being viewed
Understand.
southbound?
And Mr. Nelson, remind me, I remember you said that the monument sign's going to be uplit. It's not going to actually have, it's not going to be illuminated, but it's going to have lights shining on it.
Correct.
Are the signs on the either end of the building going to be illuminated?
Yeah, the channel letters.
The channel letters will be
internally
illuminated.
illuminated.
Okay.
So,
Again, this is mainly for visibility. We're going to open up business more at the end of the day. Days like this get dark by 5 p.m.
Right.
A sick child in the car and you're running around trying to find a place, it's going to be hard. We want to be visible.
I will say, I think one of our conversations in the committee meeting was the fact that the monument sign really sort of serves the purpose of capturing those folks who are coming, I guess that's northbound. And I can see having the illuminated sign on the side of the building where you are located, because that's going to be your parking lot for your business. It seemed a little bit odd to me to have an illuminated sign for your business on the McCool Buddha side of the building. It seems like that would almost cause confusion because your entry's on the other end. I don't know. That was something that we had a question about, because the monument sign seemed to serve that purpose.
The way that we're trying to conduct business is that McCool and Buddha would practice from morning 8 or 9 till evening 4 o'clock, and then we use the same space from evening 5 o'clock till 10 o'clock on weekdays.
Okay.
And then weekends, we're going to open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay, so your entrance won't necessarily just be on that one
No,
end of the building. It'll
Could
be,
be either way.
Okay,
But-
okay.
But
That
mainly
we did
on
not
one
know.
side, yes.
okay, gotcha. All right.
Mr. Wolverton?
So I'm just trying to clarify. So the business is going to be on this side of the building only?
Majority of it, because this side is audiology there that they got. But the entrance, we're going to keep it only on one side due to safety.
Okay, but the
Clinic side.
the hearing clinic is not going to,
Yeah. We're going to.
you're not going to be in that space right
That is
here.
correct.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak to this particular matter? If so, please come forward. If not, we will close this public hearing. And any additional comments from the council? If there are none, Chair would welcome a motion as second.
Move to approve.
Motion from Mr. Wright, second from Mr. Thames. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, well, let's have a quick roll call just to get a number on it.
Roll call, please. Mr. Gwaltney?
No.
Mr. Thames?
No, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
No.
Mr. Wolverton?
No.
Mr. McCluskey?
No.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. Wyatt?
No.
Mrs. Andrus?
No.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes. All right, so that is 2-8, and with that, we'll move on to the next item. All right, 161018, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of a variance to the sign ordinance at 201 Green Springs Highway, requested by Amin, help me on the last name, Maqbool and Greg Cobb with our BZ department. And we will open this public hearing. Mr. Cobb.
Yes, sir. This is a request for multiple signs on on the building that was recently, that's the building that used to be a Mexican restaurant, had a fireworks stand. It was in the county. We annexed it in last year sometime. And are you here? Okay, good. I knew I had someone here to speak to it. I've spoken to several different people about this sign, so I'm myself a little unclear. Come on up, sign in over there, and then come tell us your name. The original request was for 2 of those signs, one facing Green Springs, one facing Old Columbiana Road. Along with that, the lights around the rooftop have got to come off. And in my opinion, the lights outlining the windows also have to come out. The way that's worded, we can argue about that for a while, but I interpret that to be an outline of a feature. And so, although the windows can be lit, I don't believe they can be outlined. So those things we're going to have to go away. Come on over here and tell them your name and what your request is. And that sign, the one I had, I've seen so many versions. This one I had was a little bit oversized. It was 53 square feet. I don't know what you've got now.
I'm here to speak. I'm Chris with Sinorama. I'm here only to ask about the actual channel letter sign itself. I have nothing to do with the lighting part, but if you...
But the owner of the property does.
Correct.
Yeah, and you're speaking on his behalf.
Well, I can, but I have nothing. Okay. The beauty trend sign itself, yes. First, he wanted to have one on each side of the building so that people see it on Green Springs Highway and this way exactly. And I don't know the north and south word of that, or east and west. But that was apparently denied. And so when we came in, this building is also very close to the roadway compared to other signs. And so being that way, and you can't have 2 to put on both one side or the other, you're very close to the roadway, and so you need a bigger presence to be seen when you're driving on the highway because they have to get closer to see it. So this sign, yes, is bigger than the, I think it's 50 square foot allowed?
50 square feet allowed.
So we were asking for an increase in allowing that surface area there. Is that really the only request we have as far as the signage issue?
You're going to do only one sign now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it is on a raceway.
So
And the increase is just 3 square feet over the,
No. I'm checking to recalculate that.
Yeah, you're
That's what I thought.
It was 60.
65 square feet is what you came up with?
Yeah, because we
All
had
right.
to do the box like you said around even that back.
65 square feet versus 50 square feet. And I would also suggest that the other signs on the lighting around the perimeter be removed. And on the roof and around the windows. And there's some other signs. There's a feather sign out by the street, and there's one on a power pole. Those have also got to go.
Being that I'm not part of the lights, but if I'm here to speak towards him, is there any way that those lights on the roof and around the windows can be allowed?
No, sir.
No.
I'm just asking, I'm here about the signs, but.
We're going to help you out with that one.
Okay.
So that won't be on you. You can go back and tell your customer that.
But it is a part
No.
of the sign ordinance.
Yes, sir.
It's prohibited by the sign ordinance.
Yes,
And
sir.
I can tell them that is prohibited.
Yes.
It's right here.
Well, can we make, hey, Mike, can we make that part of the motion?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't have a variance. I mean, it's prohibited by the ordinance.
Yes, sir. It
Right.
is by the ordinance. I just brought it up because it's here and it's in our face to make everybody understand if you approve or don't approve the beauty signs, regardless, those other lights won't have to leave. So the beauty trends, they're asking for a oversized sign by 15 square feet, from 50 to 65 square feet. We're only going to do one. We're not going to do a Columbiana Road sign.
We're only doing the one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That was we were told very much so that we couldn't have the 2. Now, we can revisit that if it's possible that we can, but we were told that we can only have one no matter what, so we've asked to make this one a little bigger, and that one is proportional. That is, it's an 80-foot wide building by 19 feet tall, so that you're seeing there is proportional with my designer creating it to be accurate of the 65 square foot, so we really look in the end.
any other questions of these folks? Mr. Wolverton?
It's not the best
Microphone.
picture. My eyes aren't fantastic, but is that a,
I have a black and white image
what is
if that helps you.
what is the image on the left there? Is that
It is
a
what you call a shopping bag, a shopping bag.
Okay.
But again, one thing we don't show there is the raceway, but the raceway will be connecting them all, and then it will be, as close as we're able to get it to paint the color of the building, so. kind of disappearing.
And will it be illuminated?
Yes, sir, channel letter sign. The question I have for you, well, as part of that is there a possibility while we're discussing this to have two signs any longer? Or we thought that was a moot point, so we didn't even go that far?
In the original request, it was multiple signs originally, and like I said, I've got 3 different versions. There's my other one right there.
I think the
That's
reason
the first one I
is
saw.
that there was a different sign company involved at the time, and they were told, and then we were told that it's just absolutely no. So we kind of went away from that, is we were told no. But if it's still a possibility, then we would love to consider that, you know. Just ask.
Are they permitted within the ordinance here to have a monument sign as well?
Yes, sir.
Along with well, there's your second sign.
Yeah, I mean, you could put the monument
It'd
sign on
have
the
to be a
other
monument,
side.
it'd have to be a monument, not a pole.
There's your second sign.
Yeah, no
Not a
pole.
Not a pole sign, but a monument sign, okay.
And you're permitted for that.
Within the size.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So basically, one out of the parking lot within whatever rules you have of putting one there.
I can give you the dimensions on a monument.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, appreciate it. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this matter? Please come forward if you do.
15 feet tall, 30 square feet. I'll have to send it to you.
All right, we'll close this public hearing and welcome a motion and a second from the council.
I'd make a motion to approve pending the removal of the lighting along the top of the roof and also around the windows.
Okay, we have a
That would
motion
need to
from
happen.
Ms. Smith. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. White. Sure.
As I don't know that needs to necessarily be a part of
The motion.
the motion because, I mean, they're in violation.
Right.
I mean, they're in violation, so it's got to come down no matter what anyway.
But I guess my point was, I don't want them to do the sign until they get that down.
That's correct.
Using it
Yeah.
as a motivating factor.
In other words,
Well, it's
We're-
coming down regardless of whether we do the sign or not.
But
Yeah,
timing.
that's my point is that, I mean,
Bring them in compliance before we approve.
The public hearing's closed, I'm sorry.
he may be the owner who might be able
I-
to explain it.
I believe
Okay.
it's the owner.
Are you the owner?
Yes, sir.
Well, then come forward.
How y'all doing? So the LED light, it's no problem. I can take all that down. It's not a problem. So we can take all the LED lights down. That's not an issue at all. I can take it first thing in the morning.
Okay.
If you guys
Excellent.
allow us to have the sign.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
We're about to vote on that, so thank you.
I
I
got you.
Yeah,
appreciate
that's
it.
got to come down regardless.
Yeah, I'll take it down
Yeah,
first
yeah,
thing
yeah.
in the morning.
No, we understand. So, Mr. Burgett, motion by Ms. Smith, second by Mr. White. Thank you. Have a
Sir,
seat,
would you
please.
pronounce your name, please?
Baha Hajez.
Oh, thank you.
Now, any other questions of council members?
Well, I'll just make a comment. You know, we've granted size variances in the past along this corridor for the specific reason that the buildings were sitting 100, 150 yards off the street. This building is literally in the street. Just something to think about.
I know, but it's only 15. My biggest thing is, it's not an exceptional amount of overage. It's 15 feet over the 50-foot limit, but
Well,
Well, I
I'm
understand.
with you.
Why don't we do this? We're having some discussion. The motion's been put forth, we've got a second. All in favor of approval of this, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Let's call roll again.
yes, sir.
Making it difficult on Robert.
Mr.
tonight.
Gwaltney? No. Mr. Thames?
No, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham? No. Mr. Wolverton?
No.
Mr. McCluskey?
No.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
no.
Mrs. Andrus?
No.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so it's defeated unfortunately 7-3. Okay?
Comment real quick. Is it possible, since the owner and the sign guys are here, if y'all will listen for 1 second? Guys, hold on. I think the exposure that you want by increasing the size of the sign will be taken care of by following the current ordinance and adding that second sign, the monument sign. That's going to get you the same amount of exposure without having to violate the ordinance. Just my opinion. That's why I voted no, letting you know, just giving you
Thank you.
my stance on it.
1710-18, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of a variance to the sign ordinance of 813 Green Springs Highway. Mr. Shinara, Greg Cobb, our BZ department. We'll begin by opening the public hearing. Mr. Cobb.
Yes, sir, that's actually an error. This was a confusion we had of 3 different people being involved. That was also that's actually the last one we just did. They were using their address where the Shannars on the property down at Alfredo's and that shopping center. So that was, like I said, I kept having, I was getting this information from 3 different places, so that was the confusion. So we need to drop that.
Move to drop.
Well, let me close the public hearing first. Public hearing's closed. Now go. All right. Who was the original motion? Hold on. Mr. Higginbotham, second from Ms. Smith.
No.
Mr. McCluskey, okay. See, y'all moved too fast for me. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Did you get that, Mr. Burgett?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, sir.
All right, 2210-18, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of declaring the property located at 1509 Beckham Drive public nuisance due to a violation of Ordinance 1098 litter and Ordinance 1310 open and unenclosed storage and Ordinances 1750 and 1910 excessive growth, requested by Mr. Cook, our code enforcement with the police department. We're going to open this public hearing. And let me, is there anyone here to speak to this matter? Okay, there not being, Mr. Cook needs a little time to work on the.
I mean, we're neighbors and we can speak to the.
Sure, we'd be happy to have you. We need you to sign in up here.
No, ma'am, just the name and address. It's 2210-18. It's not necessary, though. I'll get you on here. 2210-18, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am. Your name is?
Laurie Fields, Laurie Richardson Fields.
Ms. Fields. Okay, please.
And Tammy Compagnon, she's going to talk as well. We live in that neighborhood.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I've
Your
lived there
address is?
1504 Royce Road.
Okay.
And I've lived there for 14 and a half years.
Yes, ma'am.
And the house should be condemned. And it has always been a health issue. There's been animals, rodents. It's overgrown. It's unsafe for the neighborhood. It's bringing everyone's property value down. And there's children. There was a child living there at one time. And it's just trash and filth completely surrounding the premise. And there's a very foul smell when you walk in front of the premise. I have seen rodent carcasses coming out of the premises. It is completely, it's just a terrible health hazard. And we both live right around the corner, and fortunately, we can't see it from our house, but again, if we walk up the street, and there are children that live in that neighborhood, there's next door neighbors that are children, and it's a terrible health hazard for the neighborhood. It should be condemned.
2 questions. One, or a question and a comment. One, to your knowledge, is someone residing in that home now?
We are not sure. I've actually called the police. We know that the cars have been moved. We know that there was no one there when the dogs, which again is another issue altogether that's just unbelievable. But we know that when the dogs were removed from the house, we assumed there was no one there. None of us knew there was no one there because you can't see. They keep the windows completely covered up. It's such a mess down there. Nobody wants to walk down there. So no one in the neighborhood knew that there was anyone not in the home. they just assumed that there was the 2 family members that still lived there. But to our knowledge, we think they're coming and going and moving things out. I've actually called the police once, and they went and checked, and there was no one there at the time. But I think Tammy might be able to speak to it a little bit better.
Okay. My one comment, because this, you may want to take this a little further. This is a, declaring the property a public nuisance. It's not a condemnation. I have no problem with what you have to say, but we may want to go back and look at this a little further to see if the condemnation's a possibility. I certainly want to respond to what you're saying, ma'am.
Okay, yeah,
I do, Ms. Fields.
We've had to send animal control to this house several times over the years, yes, sir.
Yeah, everyone in the neighborhood has reported issues. I personally have had to take one of their animals to the vet myself.
Wow.
So we just had no idea that any of this was going on, as far as there would be no one down there. But yeah, we've had several neighbors in the neighborhood who have reported and called animal control. We have all called animal control and talked to animal control before, so we know that they've been down there multiple times.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fields.
Okay,
now,
thanks.
Thank you. It's Tammy Campagno. My address, me and my husband, Daniel, live at 1520 Beckham Drive in Homewood. We've been homeowners in our house since summer of 1996. The house became more of a problem in terms of overgrown, excess cars, probably starting in about 2002, 2003. The 1500 block of Beckham, to get some of y'all a visual that may or may not know this area. The 1500 block of Beckham it dead ends into a cul-de-sac, and this house is down in a cul-de-sac.
Yes, ma'am.
We've had a problem over the years. There have been people down in the circle to their credit that have tried to do things about this house. This is not the first time this house has come up before the council. I believe it came up about 2002, 2003, 2004. We will sometimes have a stench come out of that house. We'll hear dogs bark. We knew they had some dogs down there, but we just did not know how many. I'm probably maybe about a half block away from the house. We had assumed people were still living down there. We do know the homeowner is married and has a 6 or 7-year-old child that supposedly is out on the West Coast trying to make a break into show business, and we had thought somebody was still down there. And my first notice of this specific incident was I was watching Ironing Clothes, of all things, and watching the NBC 13 local news broadcast on Thursday, October the 4th at about 6:10 p.m. And they showed on the news, they showed that there was a house on Beckham Drive in Homewood. They flashed just a front of the house showing the overgrowth, which that's been going on for years, the overgrowth, and they said they have had 10 dogs that were abandoned and taken into custody. So the thing that really shocked me was, because sadly, it's like if anytime this gets remediated, the overgrowth, eventually it comes back. And the shocking thing for me when I was seeing this news broadcast was the NBC 13 broadcast showed a shot of the inside of the house, of the kitchen area. It looked like something off of that TV show Hoarders. There was not a clean surface on any of the kitchen counters. The double wide, the side-by-side refrigerator doors were open. It looked like a bunch of food was spoiled. And, kudos to the Homewood Police and Animal Control that they're trying to do something for these animals, but I'm afraid this house is getting to be a revolving door of we fix it and then something comes back. Now, we have seen an older gentleman that lives there that is supposedly the stepfather of the owner of the house, has been over there and he's been trying to do some work on the house. So there's at least, we think, one adult currently in the house, at least as of, a couple of days ago. So any kind of help we can get with this, and I just want to I'm going to go ahead and just, I'm surely a lot of you have read this, but I want to read what was in the Birmingham News. This is Friday, October the 5th, 2018. I'm sure it was on AL.com also, page A3. Homewood, police, 10 dogs rescued after owner abandoned them. Nearly a dozen dogs were rescued this week by Homewood police after they were abandoned by their owner who moved out of state, police said. Officers on Wednesday carried out a search in the 1500 block of Beckham Drive, about a half-mile north of Homewood Central Park, after receiving a complaint about several dogs being abandoned at the home. Sergeant John Carr said Homewood Animal Control found 6 in the backyard. The dogs, Carr said, were in extremely poor health and their drinking water was contaminated. Inside the house, officers found 4 more dogs. They too were in poor health and the residence was not in livable condition. The dogs were taken to Vulcan Park Animal Clinic where they are being treated, or were being treated. They will remain there until the case is solved. Vulcan's veterinary technician said that there were 8 small breed dogs and 2 large breed dogs. They are matted and covered in fleas, but really sweet and getting needed treatment. Carr said investigators believe the dogs could have been abandoned for up to a month. Officers had to wear protective clothing because of the filth and odor, and they could only work for minutes at a time without a break. Investigators are working to find the owner and will pursue animal cruelty charges. And the only thing I can add on that is this house is affecting the property values in our neighborhood.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Cook?
Just real briefly, I assisted in collecting those animals that day with animal control, so I'm very familiar with what happened, what we saw. We did, with what I'm dealing with the abatement of the yard, excessive growth in the litter. I also had 2 inoperable cars at the time. Sent him notices. He got both cars working and operational. I did go by and see that he could move them forward and backward, so that issue was dropped. Working with him on abating the yard, getting it cleaned up. There is someone living there. He is in bad health. He is working to resolve that and is making some progress. Unfortunately, when this is taken care of and resolved, it's still going to be an eyesore to the community, but he'll come in compliance, I assure you. Or we'll go on the property and make it compliance. I mean, there's no grass in the yard. Everybody else takes care of the yard immaculately, but he's still going to stand out. Or this house is still going to stand out.
Well, let me ask you this,
And
Mr.
as far, excuse me, as far as the condition of the house, I think that's been turned over to the inspections department to look at as far as whether they need to send it to the abatement board.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Cook. In light of earlier conversation you and I have had, do we want, we can leave this public hearing open and see what progress is made in the next 2 weeks. It's my suggestion that we do that, and therefore that's what we'll do. But we expect significant improvement. And I also think we ought to look at the possibility, have we inspected the interior of this house?
I have been inside.
Well, when you were getting the dogs, but I
Yes.
mean, have you inspected it since then?
No, and I don't think that's my privy to do that. I mean, I've turned that over to the inspections department to see if that's livable. And I'd be glad to take that on, but I just don't.
And do you know what the timetable is for that?
For as far as
the
abatement
inspection
board?
work that's being?
I'm sorry.
You said you had turned it over to someone to
Yeah,
do
I've
some
turned
inspection
the
work?
condition of the house over to the inspections department to look into.
Okay, and do we know when they're going to complete that? I mean, it sounds like it's in
So
just
typically,
tragic condition.
Mr. Pugh will take and go assess the house, and then if it meets the conditions that warrant a nuisance, a public nuisance, he'll refer it to the abatement board.
Right, I
So
know.
it could be up to a month, because I believe the abatement
60
board.
days.
60 days. Because then they send them a notice and they have time to address it, like Mr. Andrew.
And unless I'm mistaken, for anyone, other than having permission to go inside, I would assume that would take a search warrant. Took a search warrant for us to go inside to retrieve the dogs. So I would assume search warrant would be necessary to go back in to evaluate the inside of the house.
I think the building inspection department has the right to go on the property.
And,
Assess it for whether or not it's unsafe or not.
okay.
Mr. Cook, is it the gentleman that lives there that's attempting to bring it into compliance, or this other man someone mentioned?
No, there's only one. I think we're referring to the same person.
Okay.
Yeah. there's
And it's been a month since the animals were removed, is that correct?
Yes.
And the premises still are out of ordinance as far as overgrowth, litter, things like that?
Yeah, but he's making progress. He's getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. And I hope if you carry it over that I'll be able to come up here then and say, here's the pictures and feel like,
Is he the owner of the house?
no.
He's not.
Who is the owner? And where is the owner?
I think it's the lady that she was referring to in California. Lady is a Stacy Lee Heckathorn.
If this has been ongoing for a month, and the house, which you said doesn't have any grass.
Yeah, it never has.
So,
2 big magnolia trees out that just totally shade the front yard.
okay. So, a month in, why is it still excessive growth and litter?
Because it hasn't
Mr.
completely
Thames,
finished.
let me say this to you. An employee with our city has verbally made a commitment to this individual that he has another 2 weeks. What I therefore would like to do is to leave it open until we can see what transpires in those 2 weeks. I certainly understand the desire to move more expeditiously, but giving the honoring of what's been said, I think we give it the 2 weeks. Because if we don't, then we're negating what's been said.
All right, well, I just agree with the ladies that spoke before. I mean, I've had complaints about this house over the years, and we've sent animal control over there over the years, and my opinion is, if we had to drag the dogs out of there a month ago and the house is still not in acceptable condition, that's more than enough time. I understand if some commitments were made, and we'll wait, I suppose, but it better be fixed.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Make sure I understand this. So, I mean, we're here dealing with being fixed on the outside.
Correct, just excessive growth and the litter.
What I'm sitting there wondering about is the inside and the livability of this house that's owned by somebody from California. Okay, well, that's what needs to be, not that we, I mean, please work and we'll clean up the outside and so forth for the neighbors and the neighborhood, and that certainly needs to be done, but right behind that is Wyatt's work and getting this done as expeditiously as possible.
We meet with him tomorrow and
Okay.
discuss.
And in the meantime, any communication we need with the city attorney, the council would certainly like to see that
Okay.
done as well. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on.
You continue the public hearing?
Sir?
Or you
We're continuing it. Yes, absolutely.
to the 19th? The next meeting?
Right, we're going to take some things out of order here just a little bit. All right. That is always tough for me. Let me see. No. Oh, okay. We're going to take an item out of order, 1907-18, request for consideration of pop-up vendor ordinances requested by Mr. McCluskey. We'll begin with a report from Public Safety, Mr. McCluskey.
Yes, the committee met and voted 4-0 to recommend approval of the ordinance that was drawn up. The motion was made by Councilor Andrus and seconded by Councilor Wyatt. We do have somebody in the audience that's been brought to our attention. I know several people on the council have had conversations, and if you will allow it, Mr. President, I'd like to have them come up and speak.
19/7/18.
All right, if you will, state your name. Each individual speak.
Thank you all for going ahead and hearing us. Jeffrey Ketchum, and I'm with
William Perez. And my concerns is about, I have a food trucks. I got 2 of them. And I'm just concerned about the hours to operate it. So I want to see the business start, the lunch 11. We open 11 to 10:30 in the night, like Wednesday, Tuesday, and Friday we open a little late. And I heard like they try to do like 7 to 8, but we don't do breakfast. We don't do anything for breakfast. So it's my concern by the hours.
So your hours currently, you're open from, you said 10 o'clock? So that's when you start?
We start operating by 10:30.
About 10:30?
10:30 to sometimes 11.
The latest in the evening, you said 10:30?
10:30, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the weekends we stay like maybe 11:30 or 12.
Okay.
But it's only Friday and Saturdays.
Okay, and which food truck, what is the location of your?
It's a 301 Osmo Roll.
Okay, so this is the one that's on the corner of Green
Yes.
Springs and all?
Mhm.
Is that the one that has a power pole?
Yeah.
How'd you get that?
We never get the, they pass the inspection and everything, but they never get the.
Okay.
So, and what, the hours, I think, is something that we can accommodate, but the question that we have, and the reason that we drew this ordinance up and then I brought this beforehand was because there were a lot of stationary structures that were staying on certain properties and were started to build, buildings and tents and all this. And we're trying to, with the ordinance that's been drawn up, is to get everybody to leave every night and come back.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what a mobile food truck should be doing.
Actually, I do that every morning. I got my commissary in Avondale.
So you go to the
we leave,
commissary
yeah.
every day?
So we leave it every day and coming back.
Okay.
And yeah, so I don't have no problem with that. The concern is like the hours to operate it.
Okay. So right now, we have the ordinance set from 7 a.m. because we do have food trucks that do serve breakfast till 8 o'clock. I'm of the mindset of not, 11 o'clock at night would be fine with me as long as, again, they're still following the rest of the ordinance and that they're leaving every single night and returning the next day after going to a commissary. That's my opinion, but I wanted everybody to hear it and have a discussion.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a seat, please. So the question, Mr. Kendrick, is it possible to modify the ordinance at this late date?
Yes, sir.
Okay, would you need a majority of the council to do that, or do we just?
Well, no, it's whatever you want to do as far as.
All right, well, let's do this. Let's change the ordinance to the hours of 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., and that gives you an 8-hour spread when it wouldn't be.
That's 7 days a week.
11 p.m.
I think 11 is good.
I understand. 11. Well, the question is 7 days.
Well, restaurants are.
I understand.
So, again.
Yes.
As long as, yes.
The ordinance also prohibits outside power. It requires you to be self-contained. So I'm not sure how you ever got the power company to hook up that temporary. Somebody did, it's there.
Yeah, somebody.
But there's no permit been issued by the city for that. So it's not.
Currently, he's not hooked up. The structure, the temporary structure where power structure was built, it was never hooked up. So he is not running it off of that. Due to what you're saying, the power company would not set a certain meter.
Okay.
Good. Okay, so the only change that we would make, Mr. Kendrick, would be
Yes. I got
11
that.
o'clock. Okay, well, let's do this. So we have a report from,
Yes, and I will make a motion to approve the ordinance with the changes to make the hours from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
I'll second that.
second from, motion from, do we want to do it that way, Mr. Kendrick, or do we just alter it right here and then vote on the ordinance?
Well, I've written in what you've said, and that's what we'll read.
That's what we're going to do then. First reading, sir.
It's an ordinance to add a new article, Roman numeral 16, entitled Regulation of Mobile Vendors, to Chapter 6, entitled Business License, Taxes, and Regulations of Code of Ordinances. Be ordained by the City Council as follows. Section 6-350 defines the purpose of the ordinance, which is the general purpose of this ordinance to ensure that all mobile vendors conducting business in the city have prior to such business activities obtained a business license and a mobile unit permit as required by this article, and to protect the public health, safety, comfort, convenience, prosperity, and welfare of the residents of the city of Homewood by establishing reasonable guidelines and regulations for the operation of mobile vendors in the city. Section 6-351 contains the definition sections defining all the terms. Section 6-352 requires a business license to be obtained and a mobile unit permit to be required before you can operate in the city. Section 6-353 deals with the application process for mobile unit permit. It spells out the provisions that's required before a permit can be issued. Section 6-354 provides for the investigation and permit denial issuance. Section 6-355 requires the exhibition of license and permit identification for licensees. Section 6-356 deals with the revocation of permits. Section 6-357 deals with general regulations and requirements for the operation of mobile units in the city. In that is contained the hours of operations now, with the motion that been made tonight. The hours of operation for all mobile units shall be limited to the hours of 7 a.m. through 11 o'clock p.m. local time on each day of the week. Section 6-358 deals with special restrictions dealing with certain mobile units. Subsection A is mobile food units. Section B deals with the sales of produce from mobile units. Section C deals with ice cream units. Section 6-359 deals with the duty of the police to report. Section 6-360 deals with interstate commerce transactions are not restricted by this ordinance. Section 6-361 deals with criminal penalties. So the penalties provided is a fine of not less than $100 for the first violation, the sum of $300 for the second violation, and the sum of $500 plus a possible imprisonment up to 6 months for a third violation occurring within a 12-month period. Section 6-362 deals with alternate remedies, the issuance of a citation. Section 6-363 deals with civil penalties. Section 6-364 deals that this is a cumulative article and does not repeal or affect any other ordinances or requirements. Section 2 deals that if any part of the provision of the ordinance declared to be unconstitutional or invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, all the parts or provisions of this ordinance not affected shall remain in full force and effect. Section 3, that all of the provisions of Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances are to remain in full force and effect. And Section 4, the ordinance become effective immediately upon its adoption by the City Council, approved by the mayor, as otherwise becoming law.
Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. As a reminder, before the chair asks for a motion for unanimous consent gives us the opportunity to vote on this particular item after unanimous consent is passed. So the chair would welcome a motion and a second for unanimous consent.
Second.
Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Ms. Smith. Roll call, please. Mr. Burgett.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so this will be ordinance 2718, and the chair would welcome a motion and a second for adoption.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Ms. Smith. Roll call, please, sir.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes. So 2718 passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go back to 181018, public hearing set for November 19th at 6 p.m. for consideration of condemning a house at 1801 Kensington Road, requested by Mr. Pugh. 1910, public hearing set for November 19th at 6 p.m. for consideration of condemning a house at 1569 Valley View Circle, again requested by Wyatt Pugh, and that is set. 2010-18, public hearing set for November 19th at 6 p.m. for consideration of condemning a house at 1627 Salter Road, requested by Mr. Pugh, and this will be carried over for the public hearing. 2110-18, public hearing set for November 19th at 6 p.m. for consideration of condemning a house at 2827 16th Place South, requested by Mr. Pugh, will be carried over for public hearing. 10-10-18, public hearing set for November 19th at 6 p.m. for consideration of zoning ordinance changes, requested by Mr. Thames. This too will be carried over for public hearing. Now,
Mr. Limbaugh, I'm
yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but we changed the council meeting. There's not a meeting presently scheduled for the 26th.
Well, I didn't say 26, I said 19.
Well, unfortunately, it's a zoning ordinance, and it's got to be published so many days, it can't be done.
So we need to look at extending, I'm sorry, I don't have my calendar. What's our first meeting in December?
Let me see.
I know, I can get it. Hold
Has
on.
it been posted? I don't have a phone or something.
It'll be December the 3rd.
Okay, so we will set that public hearing for December the 3rd.
Is third going to be the council or the committee meeting?
No, that's gonna, we changed the council.
Okay.
Made it
Yes,
council meeting.
that's the committee, the council meeting.
Okay.
That's 10-10-18. Thank you, Mr. Kendrick, I appreciate it, sir. Now, 1704-18, request for consideration, request to consider certain revisions to business license ordinance, requested by Melody Salter, our finance director and city clerk at the time, Mr. Burgett, our principal accountant and assistant city clerk at the time. Report from finance, Ms. Smith.
Yes, the committee met last week and voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the revisions as presented by Mr. Burgett. We made a recommendation for a cap of $500 for fees, and on the minutes it says for real estate rental businesses. I thought it was for construction companies. Am I wrong? Am I remembering that incorrectly?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
The $500 cap on business licenses, it was for property managers, okay. And the motion was made by Mr. Thames and seconded by Mr. Wright, and that was 5-0 coming out of finance.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. First reading, sir.
Yes, it's an ordinance to amend section 6-22 entitled License Classification, section 6-23C1 entitled General Contractors, including commercial home builders and remodelers, section 6-23B entitled Beer, Wine, and Liquor, section 6-23G1 entitled Professions and Vocations, section 6-23H1 entitled Real Estate, and section 6-24 entitled Validity of Checks of Article 1 entitled In General of Chapter 6 entitled Business License Taxes and Regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City. Be it ordained as follows, that section 6-22 entitled Business License adds a mobile food unit vendor license to Schedule 6-23I1. Section 2, that subsection B entitled Beer and Wine adds a classification for 020 retail liquor license for a $350 classification. Section 3, entitled C-1, entitled General Contractors, including commercial home builders of section 23, is amended to read as follows. The general contractors, including commercial home builders, and each person, firm, or corporation, including contractors, maintaining an office when the city shall pay a minimum license of $200 plus an amount equal to 1/10 of 1% of all gross receipts from the previous year, in excess of $200,000, not to exceed $2,500. Section 4, the section G1 entitled Professions and Vocations is amended to read as follows. That accountants, attorneys, dentists, professionals, veterinarians, and other professional vocations not specifically named, each person or partnership shall be pay an amount equal to 2/5 of 1% of the first $100,000 of gross annual receipts of a previous year, plus 1/5 of 1% gross annual receipts of the next $100,000, plus 1/10 of 1% the gross receipts of over $200,000. Under this section, the compensation is based on the salary alone shall be 2/5 of 10% of the gross salary for the previous year and a minimum license of $100. Section 5, Section H1 entitled Real Estate is amended to read as follows. Every person operating a business as a real estate agent, broker, developer, sales agent, or rental agent other than rental and leasing of agents, apartments or condos shall pay an amount equal to 1/10 of 1% of the gross annual receipts for the previous year with a minimum license of $100 and a maximum license not to exceed $500. Section 6-24, relating to validity of checks is amended to read as whenever a licensee or a license receipt shall be issued in return for any check, the same shall not be valid or of any force or effect unless such check shall be duly paid upon presentation to the drawee. If the check is returned to the city, the drawee of the check or the applicant shall pay a non-sufficient fund fee in the amount of $35 for each check returned to the city, in addition to all other fees or charges levied pursuant to the business license. Section 7, if any part of provision of the ordinance declared to be unconstitutional, invalid, all other parts remain in full force and effect. Section 8, that all the provisions of Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances shall remain in full force and effect and not affected by this amendment. In Section 9, the ordinance become effective December 1, 2018, upon its adoption by the City Council and approval by the mayors, otherwise becoming law.
Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for unanimous consent.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Smith, second by Mr. Higginbotham. Roll call, please, sir.
Mr. Gwaltney.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Wolverton.
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt.
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus.
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh.
Yes, so this will be ordinance 2719, and again, we would welcome a motion for adoption in a second.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Thames, second from Ms. Smith. Roll call, please, Mr. Paquette.
Mr. Gwaltney.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames.
Yes.
Mr. Higginbotham.
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton.
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt.
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus.
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh.
Yes, so this ordinance is passed unanimously. We'll move on to 09-1018, request to authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Neopost for processing system, printing, folding, and mailing, requested by Mr. Burgett, our finance director. Report from finance, Ms. Smith.
Yes, committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend approving the mayor to sign the contract. Motion was made by myself and seconded by Mr. Higginbotham.
All right, so we have a motion from finance. Do we have any further discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously, and that is Resolution 18161. Does that sound right, Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, sir.
Good. All right, 11-1018, request for consideration of Magic City Connector Route, requested by Britt Thames. Report from finance, Ms. Smith.
Yes, committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend funding the Magic City Connector route out of the carryover fund balance and sending it to Mr. Kendrick for approval of all the legalities. The motion was made by Mr. Thames and seconded by Mr. Higginbotham.
All right, so we have a motion from finance. Do we have any questions or comments?
Had one, how much was that Magic City route?
34,000.
34?
And-
34,000.
Yeah, it's 34,000.
And that's being added on to our 203 or whatever it was?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous also, and that is Resolution 18162. All right, 27-1018, request for consideration to authorize the mayor to sign a loan agreement with Bryant Bank, again requested by Mr. Burgett. Report from finance, Ms. Smith.
Yes, committee voted 5-0 to recommend approval signing the loan agreement with Bryant Bank. Motion was made by myself and seconded by Mr. Higginbotham.
All right, so we have a motion from Finance. Mr. Kendrick, did you have an opportunity this afternoon to study that?
Yes, sir, it's fine.
Okay, good. All right, that being the case, yes, Mr. Wright.
What is the loan for?
Purchase vehicles.
Oh,
Capital
okay.
vehicle purchase.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
All right,
I remember this in committee now, I just couldn't remember one thing.
thanks. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that being the case, that is Resolution 18-163. Next item is 29-1018, request to address parking on 29th Avenue, requested by our mayor. Report from Public Safety, Mr. McCluskey.
Yes, the committee met and voted 5-0 to recommend limiting parking on 29th Place, goodness gracious, to AlDOT right-of-way. The motion was made by Councilor Andrus and seconded by Councilor Wyatt.
All right, so we have a report from Public Safety. Do we have a first reading, Mr. Kendrick?
What I had drafted is, what I understood is it was to regulate parking on 19th Place South. Did I misunderstand?
I think it was both, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's 29.
29th and 19th.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I
what I
think
was-
the confusion may have come into to make an ordinance
3-hour
that was
parking.
like the one on the other, over there, but 3-hour parking for sure.
Okay.
Do we need to carry this over?
No, I can revise it, but what I sent you dealt with 3-hour parking on 19th Place South between the intersection of 19th Place with 29th Avenue and 28th Avenue. If you want to add, I just need to understand what you want to add.
But is that the little side road that goes down?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the one
Well,
that
they had
goes
asked
between
for
the
that,
two.
too. I think that came out of committee.
Yeah, I thought it did.
I thought the 29th was already regulated.
No, we wanted to.
We want.
I think we asked that question, and we were under the impression it was not, and so we wanted to make that.
Okay, I certainly can correct that.
So it was, I think what you've done, and in addition to that, 29th Avenue would probably correct it.
Okay. To the AlDOT right away?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
The ordinance I sent you did not have that. I'm sorry, I apologize.
No problem. Mr. Kendrick?
Yes, sir, it's unlawful for any, this is an ordinance to regulate and further public parking on or along 19th Place South and 29th Avenue South in the city. Be it ordained by the city council as follows. It'd be unlawful for a person, firm, or corporation to park or permit to be parked motor vehicles defined on the highway code by the highway code of the state of Alabama all along 19th Place between the intersection of 19th Place South with 29th Avenue South and the intersection of 19th Place with 28th Avenue South, and along 29th Avenue South up until the AlDOT right-of-way for a period of time in excess of 3 consecutive hours. That the chief of police is authorized and directed to erect, install, and cause to be erected and installed on 19th Place South and on 29th Avenue South appropriate lines, markings, or restricted parking signs as described in Section 1 above. Section 3, the violation of this ordinance shall constitute a misdemeanor, and any person, firm, or corporation violating the provisions thereof shall, upon conviction, be punished as provided by Section 1-8 of the Code of Ordinances. Section 4, if any part of provision of the ordinance declared to be unconstitutional or invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, all other parts or provisions remain in full force and effect. Section 5, the provisions of this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage and approval by the city council and the mayors or otherwise becoming law.
Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for unanimous consent.
Second.
Motion from Mr. White, second from Mr. Higginbotham. Mr. Waltney, thank you. I had my back turned to y'all. Y'all sounded similar. Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so this will be ordinance 2720. Chair would welcome a motion and second for adoption.
So moved. Second.
Motion from Mr. Gwaltney, second from Mr. White. Roll call.
Mr. Gwaltney?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thames?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Wolverton?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Andrus?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
And Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes, so 2720 is passed unanimously. Next is the committee referral agenda. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval. Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Mr. Higginbotham. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous. We'll move on to other new business. 05-1118, request for consideration of approval of an assurance of performance document for Jefferson County to finalize purchase of tract for Phase 2 of Greenway, requested by Mrs. Andrus and Mr. Thames. The chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Higginbotham, second from Ms. Andrus. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous, and that is Resolution 18164. Is that correct, Mr. Kendrick?
Yes, sir.
Great. 08-1118, request to set a public hearing and referral to special issues for consideration of a variance to the sign ordinance at 417 Crest Drive, requested by John Henderson and Greg Cobb with BEZ. Can we set that for 2 weeks?
Yes, sir.
And we will. Did I not say fence? I'm sorry. Fence ordinance, my fault. And we will set that for November 19th. Okay, 09-1118, request to set a public hearing and referral to Special Issues Committee for consideration of variance to the sign ordinance for Little Professor Book Center at 2844 18th Street South, requested by Stephanie Cruz with Little Professor and White Pew BZ, and we will set that for November 19th at 6 p.m. as well. All right, 10-1118, request to set a bid opening date for December 6th at 4 p.m. for a police tactical van, requested by Chief Ross and Captain Sutton. We will set that bid opening for December 6th, 2018. Is there any questions about that particular item? Good. Huh? A tactical van?
Yeah,
You want to come tell?
Yeah, what exactly is that?
No, what? Come forward.
It's Captain Latin, that's,
It'll be a van that's used to transport the TAC team, replacing two vans that are, one's 20 years old.
like a SWAT type.
No, it'll be an unmarked transport, possibly like one of those Dodge and Mercedes, the Transit, I think is what it's called. Big, high top, they can stand up.
Yeah.
Ford has one as well.
And it's part of the budget.
Yes,
so
sir.
we had
It's a
discussed
capital
this
item.
in the,
We just
yeah.
have to bid it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions while Captain Sutton's here?
Can we get an 18 van too?
If we can just not disclose the color and tag number.
Well said, Mayor. All right, so that bid opening is set. 11-1118, request for consideration of funding for easement of Patriot Park Connector, requested by Mr. Higginbotham and Mr. Jones. Before I ask for a motion, Mr. Higginbotham, do you want to provide some clarity on this particular item?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the council knows, several months ago, they approved contract for the city to enter into a contract to do some design work on Patriot Park Connector based on some preliminary sketches that were provided to us at committee meetings. I'm drawing a blank on exactly how many months ago. It seems like 20 years ago to me, but several months ago, let's just say. As a consequence of that meeting, we've been meeting, when I say we, myself, Mr. Wolverton, several staff members from BEZ, Mr. Kendrick on some of the meetings, with impacted property owners to see what we needed to do to get their consent for us to be able to move forward with the project. And it appears that we've gotten consent from the individuals. The cost to us in terms of concessions that we'd need to make for the easements is going to come to $5,000. So that's what this item is for.
Okay, good. All right, Chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion from Mr. Higginbotham, second from Mr. Wolverton. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is Resolution 618-165. Mr. Kendrick. 12-11-18, request for consideration of approval of vouchers for the period of October 22nd, 2018 through November 4th, 2018, requested by our city treasurer as well as our finance committee. Ms. Smith, who reviewed those?
That would be me.
Tell us about it,
This
ma'am.
morning. Oh, it was thrilling, as always. Got to chat with Mr. Burgett this morning. That was nice, over his morning cup of coffee. Got questions answered that I had, not very many of them, and I would move that we pay the bills.
Second.
Okay, motion for Ms. Smith, second from Mr., I had my back turned, Mr. Higginbotham. Good. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is Resolution 18-166. 13-11-18, request to approve the mayor to sign memorandum of understanding with Jefferson County for debris removal after inclement weather, requested by our mayor and Mr. Bischoff. Chair would welcome a motion and a second.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Andrus, second by Mr. McCluskey. Any questions? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous, and that is 18-167, the resolution of. 14-11-18, request to approve proposal from Travelers Insurance for renewal of property and casualty insurance coverage, again requested by Mayor McBrayer and Mr. Bischoff. Chair would welcome a motion and a second.
Okay.
Okay, go.
I'm just, the last item, are they related?
I don't know.
The next item
Is 15-11-18 related to 14-11-18?
What we're doing is the policy renewed on October 1st, so we need to, it's bound, but we need to get the mayor to sign the contract. And after it's enforced, they're asking that we give the insurance consultant the opportunity to reach out to other people and get additional bids.
But it wouldn't be until next year that would be?
I don't know. If it is feasible to save the money, to save the city enough money, they may cancel, or I don't mean to say cancel, but they may ask it to be rewritten with another company.
What was in the email that he sent to all of us essentially said that he would propose if there is a savings, that you would make it, the terms be the same as the workman's compensation, which would be sometime other than October 1. I think it's February 2nd, February 1st.
Right.
He has moved workers' comp to renew in February, so.
Okay.
And are the terms the same on the property and casualty? I mean, it's the same terms that we're renewing? I mean, there's no new terms or anything?
As far as I know, Charles had surgeries and he didn't know where he'd be.
I know that the coverages are the same based on.
Okay, that's what's important.
But I don't know what
We
the
don't need
cost
any
is.
gaps, so we need to authorize that.
Just continuing what we got.
Good. Chair would welcome a motion in a second. All right, time out. Who made the motion initially? Mr. White made the motion. Mr. Wolverton seconded it. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is 18-168, and that is approved unanimously. 15-11-18, request for to authorize insurance consultant to go back to the marketplace in November of 2018 to obtain prices for comparison, again requested by the mayor and Mr. Bischoff. Chair would welcome a motion in a second.
Yeah, that doesn't need a resolution.
It doesn't need a resolution.
So moved.
So, all right, so therefore, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that is passed unanimously. And at this point, we will turn the dais over to our mayor. Thank you, sir.
Except I enjoyed being in the girls' class, really.
Thank you for doing that, sir.
Bruce, before we get started setting committees, we moved our meeting to November 19th, which is also the first day of the Thanksgiving holiday week. And I know there are several members of the committee here, of the council here, who are going to be going on the Macy's Day Parade.
Yes.
It makes me worry that we might not have full membership at committee meetings, because we're supposed to set our committee meetings before the council meeting, because next Monday is Veterans Day.
Wow.
Just to give y'all something to think about.
What is 165?
We're not meeting on the 26th?
Yes, 164.
We need committees
That's what
before
it is.
our next council
I
meeting.
understand that.
Right, we moved everything up because of the Veterans Day holiday being on
Why don't we
Monday.
just have show of hands of who's not going to be here?
On the 19th?
So what?
So that would probably, well, that would give us 3 on finance, right?
Yep. What committees would that kill? I'm not going to call the.
Are you on Public Works?
No.
Special issues.
Special issues. well,
Probably okay.
Yeah, it looks like it might be okay. Are y'all not going?
No, I was ready.
Oh, you raised your hand, okay.
I was just not ready.
Okay, well, we need to schedule committee
Committees.
meetings for that afternoon.
Yes, right.
And it looks like finance is going to
Right,
be
we're not meeting on the 12th.
pretty busy.
Yeah, so, and I guess we're still sitting at 5 for finance.
Well, do we need an hour for finance?
Oh, I don't know if we need an hour. Let's see, what do we got?
So we're doing it before.
Yes, we're doing before council.
So it's a combined.
1, 2, 3,
So I would
4.
say, I don't know if it makes a difference, but.
Correct.
Not on finance.
Next meeting first.
I changed jobs 6 weeks ago and I'm required by my new employer to stay until 5. So if we're moving other committees earlier than 5, I won't be able to be here.
Okay.
Why don't we set finance for 4:30?
Okay, that works for me.
Will that work, Mr. James? Will that work?
Yeah.
Ms. Smith?
Yeah,
And
and
we're
I-
going to assume it's going to work with Mr. Jones.
We'll find out. If not, one of us will chair it for him. Well, that would be a problem, because then there'd only be 2 of us.
Right. Let's assume 4:30, and we'll have a conversation with Mr. Jones.
Or should we just leave finance at 5 and let one of the other committees, like special issues, that he's not on? I could do, at 4:30, I could just do special issues early.
Okay, so when we get to you, we're going to set it.
Worked out pretty well. Getting done early. Excellent.
I work out well. It works out well for me like that.
And it's not even her turn. Mr. Walton? I'll try to control this.
I also
rabble.
wanted to thank them. Thank you. I also wanted to thank the mayor for coming last Friday to read to Lily's first grade class. They were really excited to have Lily is the mayor of her class for this current semester, so I thought it would be a nice treat to have the actual mayor of Homewood show up. And so it was a good experience. Also wanted to, we had a Ward 1 meeting last week in the park, which was delightful. We got to hang out in the park till after dark. It was a good experience. We got to have a good number of neighbors come out and a good time talking about Homewood. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Walton. How about Mr. Thames?
Nothing from me this evening.
Okay, so you're not going to have P&D?
No, sir.
Right. Mr. Higginbotham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to comment on 2 or 3 different things that have occurred or are upcoming. The Homewood Public Library had another fabulous bag sale on Sunday. If you've never gone and taken advantage of the bag sale, or if you've never been to the Friends bookstore downstairs in the public library, you're really missing out, because it is a fabulous store. The prices get no better. And then the $5 bag sale just makes it that much better, because everything you can get in a paper bag for $5. And I'm telling you, we cleaned up. We even went out on Saturday and did reconnaissance before Sunday, so we knew what we wanted and where it was, and marched on in. So great event. Encourage people to go out, and they do it 2 or 3 times a year now, so there'll be another opportunity in a few months. Wanted to remind everybody of, well, I imagine Alex will talk about the chamber stuff, so I'll skip that. Green Skies Over Homewood is this Saturday, which is a tree planting event out on Shades Creek Parkway. You just need to have sensible clothes and closed-toed shoes. They will provide shovel. You can bring a shovel if you got a shovel you feel particularly attached to. But they will provide shovels and other tools, and they'll have snacks and water and all that. It'll run from 8 until noon, and there'll be a significant number of seedlings planted there along the Shades Creek Greenway. Been doing this for several years. It's something that Homewood Environmental Commission does in conjunction with Stanford University, and it's just it's a really good event. I've been out there to plant several times myself, and it's a lot of fun, and you can bring kids out to do it too. It's fairly easygoing. So I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that, and I think that that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Mr. Wolverton?
Just a couple quick things. We are tentatively going to have our Ward 2 kind of town hall informative meeting November 29th. It's a Thursday evening, most likely at Shades Valley Community Church. Yes, thank you. Sorry. I don't know how it was anywhere else in town, but Halloween this year was crazy in West Homewood. Like, we usually set out a bucket and we're up at the top of the hill and it's full when we get home. And this year there were 50 people walking up the hill when we ran home in the middle of it to get something. So I just think that's a testament to the community that we have. And, you know, we obviously have people from all over that are coming into the neighborhoods, and they think we're a safe place to be and a giving place to be. So it's just a cool environment for kids growing up here. Just wanted to thank everybody for your support with getting the park connector moving forward. We're really looking forward to that. And then obviously tomorrow is Election Day, so
Thank you.
please vote. Somebody else will say something about that, I'm sure.
I will. Mr. McCloskey? What do you think? 45 minutes, 30?
Can you do yours in 15 minutes? Or do you need more?
I got 3 items, but I mean, a lot of that stuff will have to be carried over for studies and whatnot, so I think, yeah, I mean, I can.
I think if I said 5:30, I'm efficient for my end.
Okay, so I'll do public safety at 5:45.
Right. Thank you. All right, so Ms. Smith, putting words in your mouth, you're going to do finance at 5.
Yes. And then special issues will be at 4:30. And I think we might need 30 minutes because we have a couple of signed things. And
I understand. Anything else?
Well, I will just say that Homewood won their last regular season game on Friday night against Paul Bryant with their backup quarterback in the entire time because Larkin is injured. And they have their first home playoff game this Friday night at Waldrop versus Athens at 7 o'clock. And come out and support the Patriots. Go
Thank
into
you.
the playoffs again.
Mr. White?
So we're finally at Election Day. Everyone, please go out and vote tomorrow and vote yes on the local amendment. The only,
Numbered either 1 or 2.
Yeah, I don't care if it's 537. It's the only local amendment. It's the last thing on the ballot. Go find it and vote yes. And just wanted to again thank everybody up here and down there and out there for their support and help in getting word out about everything, including whether or not it's Amendment 1 or 2. And it's been a great effort, and I'm feeling optimistic about it, but only if everyone gets out and votes. So please remind everybody you see to get out and vote tomorrow. And remember, not just people in Homewood, but people all over Jefferson County. So thanks again.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Andrews?
I absentee voted last week, so I'll be on the trail all day tomorrow. And I've already voted yes on local amendment 2. I yelped yesterday or Wednesday. I do think that the weather's going to move on through here. I think we're going to be okay weather-wise. So I was stressing out a little bit about getting people out to the polls in that weather, but I think it's going to pass through here tomorrow. So cross-country, girls and boys, high school have won sectionals. So they both came in first place. So they are moving on to state. And if you can handle another bridge update, got another bridge update. I want to thank again, have you ever heard of this project we've been working on? I want to thank Mr. Kendrick Peter Wright and I headed down to Birmingham City Council for another field trip, and we presented to the Transportation Committee this afternoon. They had carried over our item from a couple weeks ago, and we passed out of committee unanimously. So we are very excited about that. So we go to full council on November 20th. Once and what that was actually for was the cooperative district. So once that's formed, we get the county, we pass our cooperative district, Mountain Brook, and then we can meet, open our bank account, cash our checks that we received from all of our legislators last week. We want to thank everybody for that, and we're moving. That's it.
Thank you.
We are. And we're going to sleep on that bridge when that thing's built. I'm telling you.
We're going to be there overnight when they put it in.
We're going to camp out or something. I don't know what we're going to do. You know, it was a pleasure going to Birmingham City Council today with Jennifer. And it did pass unanimous, although it was a 2-0 vote.
Yeah.
But
Their
committees are a little smaller than ours. But
the whole council was there. But
They just wish they could be our size, right?
Yeah, no, I don't know about that. But,
yeah, really.
But, and congratulations to Jennifer, and also congratulations to Alex on all of his good hard work. And let's make sure this will be the only time we get to do this, guys. So
Right.
please drag everyone out. Let's get us a good vote in Homewood. I know we will. And I'm optimistic with Alex as well. Let's see, whether it's YOLO, YOLT, or YOHA. Yes on Homewood's amendment, okay? We we could quickly put some signs together, guys, so.
We need
we
more
could get Coach
signs.
Sills in the park, and we'll just
We
whip
don't
up a
need-
party.
One thing we don't need is more signs. All right, we digress. Anyhow, congratulations to both of you two on these great projects. Okay, and Mr. Wolverton, I have a question for you on neighborhood buffer considerations on Oak Grove. Is this going to come up on our next committee meeting on the 19th? Or do we?
The most recent update last week, that the two parties are talking, and so I think we need to do anything. with
Okay,
it.
all right, well, then we won't have a Public Works in maybe December. We'll see what happens.
Sounds
And that's
good.
it for me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Just to obviously tie into what a couple of others have said about the voting, we know how important it is for all of us to get everyone we know in Jefferson County to vote yes for the local amendment. But just as a reminder, I mean, people talk about certain groups will turn out the vote, certain groups will not, whether it's whatever demographic we're talking about. Vote, 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 vote. Our forefathers and foremothers earned us the right to vote, and we disrespect them if we don't vote, in my best judgment. And so, vote. And Mr. Higginbotham said something to me a couple months ago that really made a profound impression upon me. I don't have a right to sit up here and tell anyone else how to vote, but he made the statement. He said, we just need to simply look at every race and vote for whom is the best candidate in that position. I mean, I can tell you about some races where I feel like both candidates are qualified. But at the end of the day, look at it yourself, make an informed decision. But the first thing I'm going to do after I deliver grandkids to Edgewood and Homewood Middle School tomorrow, such a joy to keep my grandchildren, will be to go vote. And I just encourage everyone who hasn't absentee balloted like you, Ms. Andrews, to go do so. I would love to talk ad nauseum about all the work Mr. White has put in. I'd love to talk ad nauseum about all the work Ms. Andrews has put in. But let's look forward to the final success and then sing those accolades. So with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
the zone